Hello everyone, welcome back to The Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 4th August 2024. Today again, we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we'll look into various aspects of food security in India. Then we'll look into the status of India's semiconductor industry, some challenges and possible solutions. After that, we will learn an important and interesting topic, that is narco-terrorism in India, which is a very important topic of internal security. Then we will look into some basic details about subclinical tuberculosis. After that, we'll try to decipher some basic details about Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, or abbreviated as FCRA. At the end, we will look into some prelims snippets which will help you in excelling your prelims exam. So stay tuned. Our first topic is food security in India. The context of this topic is that Prime Minister have said recently that India has become a food surplus country and providing solutions to global food security in a recently concluded conference of International Associations of Agricultural Economists. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, food security. We are listening from our childhood that there are three basic needs of human. One is food, second is shelter, and third is the clothing. But if we talk about the food security, it doesn't only talks about the 2 times meal availability. Rather, it has several other dimensions. What are those dimensions? One is the accessibility of food, second is the availability of the food, and third is the affordability of the food. If we talk about accessibility, means whether that food is available to each citizen without any discrimination or not. If we talk about the availability, means whether we have sufficient stocks in the granaries or not, about the production capacity, and if we do not have sufficient production capacity, then do we need to have imports of food grains or not. Then if we talk about the affordability, means the people have enough money to buy sufficient, safe and fit to eat nutritious food or not. When all these three things are available to any citizen, or we can say all the citizens, then that country can be called as a food secure country. India came a long way from being a food deficient country in the early 1960s or after the independence to become a food surplus country. We have seen a consistent rise in the production of cereal crops as well as cash crops like sugarcane. Our food grain production in last few years have consistently higher than 300 million tons. The country is #1 producer of milk, pulses, spices in the world, second largest producer of food grains, fruits, vegetables, cotton, sugar and tea. If we trace the journey of food security of India, okay, what happened in 1937, the Burma, or which is called as Myanmar nowadays, was separated from the British India. Then after independence, this East Bengal region was also separated, as well as the West Punjab region was also separated. Now this Burma was the region where lot of pulses production was happening. In East Bengal, it was called as the rice bowl of the country. And in the Western Punjab region, there was a good connections of the canals, and that was leading to good wheat production. When we lost these three major areas which were very good in food productions, there has been several crises related to the food grain production. We have faced the shortage of the food grain production, and that is where India have signed an agreement with US for the food aid, that is named as the PL 480, where this PL 480 or Public Law 480 was the agreement which was from which we are getting the food aid from the US. But some critics said that the wheat that we were getting from this was only fit enough to be eaten by pigs. And that is one area that where India faced lot of insult at that point of time. What happened after the independence, our major focus was on towards developing the industries, because that can help in creating a faster economic growth as well as lot of job creation. So this was the thinking of the earlier planners of India. And it was also thought that the imported food grains will have a lower cost as compared to if we go for the food production in India. And that is why in the initial days after the independence, we didn't focus much on increasing the food grain production capacity of India. But after facing this difficulty, the acute food shortages in the early 1960s, we have gone for green revolution that have increased our food grain production as well as capacity to manifold. There are three strands of the green revolution. There were biochemical innovation, where we have gone for high yield variety seeds or hybrid seeds, use of fertilizers, herbicides as well as insecticides. The consequences of it had that we have increased yields as well as the productivity. There was lot of control on the weeds as well as pests, but there have been an increased cost for the farmers, because farmer have to buy these high yielding variety seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, etc., which have some additional cost. And it have also led to possible environmental degradation, where there was leaching of chemicals that were coming from the fertilizers and that have also polluted the groundwater table. If we look into the mechanical innovation, diesel and electric powered irrigations were done, especially in the areas like Punjab and Haryana. Then also there has been mechanization in the farms, where tractors and harvester etc. we have seen an increased use of these equipments. Also the transportation have also improved, and that have helped in the controlled water supply, and less labor was needed, as well as increase in the arable area or the area which we were irrigating. And there has been also improvement in accessing the markets because of the transportation improvements. If we look into the social innovations, we have also gone for selective land reforms as well as change in distributive systems, where we have improved our market linkages. It have helped in farm consolidations, going for economies of scale and better seeds as well as inputs availability to poor and marginal farmers. But there are still some challenges related to food security in India. What are those challenges? First is the poverty and the income inequality. As per the multidimensional poverty index, which is released by Niti Aayog, India still have around 11.28% poverty. And if we talk about the income inequality, that this World Inequality Report says that India, among the most unequal nations, top 1% of population holds 22% of national income. And that is a major roadblock in the food security, because when there is lot of poverty, people do not find it affordable to have basic food, safe as well as nutritious food. Then the population growth. We have almost 1.4 billion population, and we have become now the world's most populous country. And this creates a lot of pressure on the food grain production. And that is where we come to a situation that it is the food grain availability is with the people is, but we do not have nutritious food availability with the people. For example, India is the highest producer, highest importer, as well as highest consumer of pulses. And because pulses are one of that major staple diet which have high protein content. But even people do not find that affordable, and there is no proper availability of pulses. Then if we look into the agricultural challenges, the agriculture is facing the challenges like low productivity, where the per hectare productivity is much lower as compared to the major economies like China, Brazil, etc. Then the climate change related challenges like increased cases of droughts, floods, incessant rainfalls, etc. have also taken a dent on the productivity as well as the yields of the farmers. Then the soil degradation, where after the green revolution we have seen an indiscriminate use of chemical fertilizers, and we have gone for manifold increase of urea, DAP, etc. that have degraded the soil quality also, and now it is leading to lower productivity as well as lower yields. Then the insufficient or inefficient food distribution. For example, the PDS or public distribution system is facing challenges like leakages, corruptions, where the good quality of grains are diverted elsewhere and poor quality or lower quality grains are being provided to the people. Then corruptions at the FRP or fair price shops are also being seen. For example, whatever the mandated quantity is, that is not given to the people. Then there are various storage issues also that is leading to a lot of post harvest losses. Next, some challenges are, for example, unbalanced diet and malnutrition. The state of food security and nutrition in the world 2023 report says that 3 in every 4 Indians can't afford the healthy foods. If we talk about the prevalence of undernourishment in the total population, almost 16.6% is population that is undernourished if we talk about the 2020 to 22 data. Then if we talk about the people who are unable to afford healthy foods, almost 74.1% is the population which can't afford the healthy food. And this is the problem that I was talking about, that people have basic food availability in the form of rice, potato, wheat made chapatis, etc. But they can't afford the nutritious food. Even the basic foods like pulses, fruits, vegetables, etc. are not affordable to a major population of India. And if we talk about population in crores, it is almost 104.3 crore population who finds it unaffordable to go for the healthy foods. Then the price volatility is also one of the major challenge which is leading to challenge in the food security. For example, we have consistently seen in the increased food grain production. But if we talk about the retail price rise in the food crops, especially in case of pulses and rice, we have seen a increased prices changes in past few years, and that also creates a unaffordability issues and ultimately leads to a challenge in the food security. Then the food wastages. This is a data from Trade Promotion Council of India, which says that almost 291.95 million tons annual production is of cereals, and almost 4.6 to 6% annual losses we are incurring on the cereals. And if we look into the data for the horticulture crops, that is vegetables and fruits, we will see much more losses in those areas. If we talk about the various government initiatives that government have taken in past few years, okay, the National Food Security Act, which guarantees the subsidized food grains to a significant portion of the population. Here, the 75% rural population is covered and 50% urban population is covered. Here, some people are categorized as the BPL or below poverty line who have been given much more support, and there are priority households also who are given less support as compared to the BPL people. Then the PDS system or the public distribution system, which distributes food grains through a network of fair price shops to ensure food availability for the vulnerable sections, and especially in the cases of COVID, it have helped a lot to ensure the food security. Then the MSP regime or the minimum support price, where the government procures agricultural produce at a guaranteed minimum price to protect the farmer's income and encourage the production. So on one hand, it is increasing the production because it is motivating people to produce, because government is going to procure at the MSP price. And it also helps the government to create a buffer of stocks of various cereals that they are procuring at the MSP price. Then the National Food Security Mission, which aims to increase the production of rice, wheat, pulses and coarse cereals through improved agricultural practices like precision agriculture, so that the productivity can be increased. Then if we talk about the integrated scheme on oil seeds, pulses, palm oil and maize, these are some of the areas where we are importing a lot, and that is leading to a high import bill, and it also takes a hit on our foreign exchange reserves. And that is why government have taken a dedicated initiatives for oil seeds, pulses as well as palm oil and maize, which focuses on boosting the production of these essential commodities. Then the pradhanmantrifasalbimayojana, which provides insurance coverage to farmers against the crop losses due to natural calamities like droughts, pest attacks, etc. Then there are eNAM or Electronic National Agricultural Market, which connects farmer directly with the buyers, promoting better price discovery and reducing the intermediaries. It helps in farmers getting a better prices for their produce. Then the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, which provide income support to small and marginal farmers. Here 6,000 rupees are given annually to the farmers in 3 equal installments, that is of 2000 rupees. Then One Nation One Card, which allows beneficiaries to access their rations from any fair price shop across India. This has helped in accessibility of foods to the people who have migrated from their native place to some other urban areas in search of better employment, etc. Then other initiatives which is focusing on the nutritional support. For example, integrated child development services, which provides supplementary nutrition, immunization and healthcare services to children and pregnant women. Then the midday meal scheme, which provide cooked meals to school children, and this have helped in improving the nutritional intake as well as the attendance in the schools. Then pradhanmantrifasalbimayojana, which provides cash benefits to pregnant and lactating women to improve the maternal and child health. Then there is a agricultural infrastructure fund, which is a central sector scheme, and it aims to improve the storage, processing and transportation facilities for agricultural produce. Then there is soil health card scheme, which provides information on soil health to farmers, enabling them to adopt appropriate nutrient management practices, and it mainly aims to help farmers to address the issues of the soil degradation. So what should be the future course of action? First, there is need to go for agricultural productivity and sustainability. That what are the areas through which we can move towards better agricultural productivity. There is need for climate resilient agriculture. Here, if we talk about the agricultural resilience, we will be increasing the production, and we will also be raising the farmers' income, ensuring food security as well as adapting the climate smart agriculture. Means here there are multiple things that we have to go for. For example, we have to go for mixed farming. Not only focusing on the cereal grain production, we have to also move towards the livestock population. If we talk about the climate smart agriculture, we will have to go for precision agriculture, etc. Then if we talk about the reducing greenhouse gases, we will need to adopt to the clean energy, effective crop management we have to do. We will also have to enhance the quality of livestock farming, because the farming is one of the important component which leads to lot of methane emission, and that is why we are moving towards those crops which have less methane emission. For example, superfoods, that is millets, etc. Then we also need to go for increasing the forest cover, and for this we can go for agroforestry, social forestry, indigenous tree plantation, joint forest management, etc. Then least land use changes, maintaining the naturality of land areas. Okay, here government is promoting natural farming as well as the organic farming, so that foreign substance use can be minimized, that is fertilizer, insecticides and pesticides, because it disturbs the natural land use pattern. Then we also need to go for better water management practices. Here we need to go for increasing the storage capacity, especially the rainfall that we get during the monsoon season. Then there is need to have fair policies for water supply and distribution, and we also need to focus on river health as well as the groundwater health. We also need to invest in research and development, where we can have better high yield variety seeds at a lower cost that is affordable to the farmers. We also need to improve the irrigation infrastructure. Here government hand holding is very important, so that the better facilities, precision agricultural equipments can be provided to farmers at an affordable cost. Then there is also need for land reforms. Here we are talking about the land reforms 2.0, where there is need for going for consolidation, because due to the increasing population, land have fragmented to many folds, and now due to the smaller sizes of land, the mechanization of farms are not being done. So we have to go for the land consolidation, so that farmers can reach the economy of scale. Then there is also need for improving the credit as well as the insurance of farmers. Still a lot of farmers are going for the informal credit system. For this there is need for increasing awareness generation, and also we need to improve the banking penetration. Then if we talk about the food distribution and storage, we need to strengthen the PDS. We will have to fix the leakages, as well as we have to address the issues like corruption, etc. For this, there is need for improving the technology integration. We have also included the biometric system, etc., but that also needs to be strengthened. We will also need to invest in storage and cold chain infrastructure so that post-harvest losses can be reduced. Then there is also need for promoting the private sector participation. Here also a committee named Santa Kumar Committee that have recommended to promote the private sector participation, especially in strengthening the storage capacities. Then we also need to improve the market infrastructure so that the farmers can get a better price as well as better price discovery of their produce. Then if we talk about the nutrition and health, there is need to diversify the diets. Here the government programs have to be made much more robust so that a better coverage of population can be done. We also need to fortify the foods. Here the food processing sector is going to play a very important role, where we will have to give some micronutrients in the staple diets in the foods like the golden rice, etc., that are being used now. Then there is also need to improve the education of the people regarding the importance of nutrition rich diet. Then there is also need to strengthening the Anganwadis, which play a very important role in providing nutritious food to the newborn as well as lactating mothers. Then we also need to address the regional disparities, especially the areas which have not benefited from the green revolution like northeastern states. They also needs to be focused. Then there is need for proper monitoring as well as evaluation. Here there should be a proper oversight mechanism by government so that government can ensure whatever the programs is being run by the government is actually leading to a improvement on the ground. Then there is also need for empowering the farmers, and for this we have to increase the awareness so that a proper inclusive growth of farm agriculture sector can be done, as well as food security can be ensured for all the people of India. Now a mains practice question from this topic that you people can write, that discuss the major impediments in achieving food security in India, suggest comprehensive strategies to overcome these challenges and to ensure equitable access to nutritious food for all. Our second topic is India's semiconductor industry. The context of this topic is that Indian government officials assures Taiwan of policy stability in semiconductor sector, and Taiwan is a very important country in ensuring the self-reliance of semiconductors in India. If we talk about this topic, this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2 government policies and interventions, and syllabus of your GS paper 3 indigenization of technology growth and development. If we look into the basics, semiconductor are those materials which have conductivity lying between conductor and insulators. For example, silicon, germanium, selenium are some of the elements which are semiconductors. These semiconductor is heart and brain of modern electronic as well as communication technology products, and they are going to play a very important role towards the newer technologies or upcoming technologies like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and machine learning. If we talk about some data regarding the status of semiconductor industry in India, there are, according to some experts, almost 2000 chips are being designed per year. The semiconductor consumption in India reached almost $21 billion in 2019, and it is growing at a rate of 15.1% as per the India Electronics and Semiconductor Association, or abbreviated as IESA. This industry is almost 23.3 billion in 2021, and it is expected to reach almost 80 billion by 2023 according to some estimates. If we talk about the significance of promoting this industry, this will lead to a better economic growth and job creation, because this is a new industry which is very important for industry 4.0. So it have a massive potential for job creation, as well as it can create an economy multiplier effect, where by improving or by increasing the capacity of this industry, we can have better growth in some other industries also, for example services sector, etc. and we also have a good export potential. There are only few countries which are exporting the semiconductor products. For example, China, US and Taiwan, etc. are some of the countries which are major exporter of these semiconductor products. So there is a scope of India to go for this leveraging this export potential in the semiconductor industry because of the cheap availability of labor that is there in India. Then the technological independence. As of now, we are heavily dependent on some of the countries like Taiwan to import the chips. And we have seen the supply chain disruptions that we have seen when the geopolitical aspects have came to light. For example, Russia-Ukraine war happened, COVID happened, that have taken a hit on the supply of the chips, and it have a far-reaching impact on various industries of India. For example, automobile industry, computer, electronics industry. So by improving the growth of this industry, we can reduce our import dependence, and it can also play an important role in reaching towards our goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Then it will also have this, we will also have a strategic autonomy. For what does it mean? For example, if we will also become a good player in the export of these chips, we can leverage this export dependence of other countries strategically. For example, let's see the example of China, which is a major supplier of the chips. That leads to a better bargaining capacity of the China whenever any geopolitical incidents happen. Then there is also a factor that it will lead to a better innovation ecosystem. The research and development as well as the IPR filing, etc. will improve in the country. Then we will also get help in participation in the global value chain, and we will also attract investment, whether it is in form of foreign direct investment, FIIs, etc. Then our supply chain resilience will also improve. We will not be only dependent on imports, rather we will have a robust domestic capacity which will help in ensuring a proper supply chain. Then we can also have this leadership in the technology for the world. Then it will also be an important component of Digital India initiative, because semiconductor industry and the development of semiconductor industry is a core component of India's Digital India initiative. It will also help in various other enabling technologies, for example, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and machine learning. If we talk about various challenges in the development, the financial constraint is one of the major challenges, because this industry requires a massive capital investment upfront in the initial stage of development of this industry, and that is where we face crisis in the capital availability. The operational cost is also very high. Then if we talk about the technological gap, the manufacturing process is very complex. As of now, the skills that our labor force have is not very much sound in going for better manufacturing process, and we have been facing difficulties in the transfer of technologies also. Then as we have talked, the talent shortage, that is the low skills in the case of semiconductor requirements, and the technological transfer challenges. If we talk about the infrastructure deficiency, the power supply issues, that is the majority of cities do not have proper supply. It is only limited to few industries, and that is also leading to a problem, because in the major cities, metropolitan cities, where there is proper supply of power, there the production cost is little higher because of the high land rent as well as the high labor cost. Then the water scarcity, because the manufacturing of semiconductors, especially the manufacturing of chips in the semiconductor industry, requires availability of proper pure water, and India is mainly dependent on the monsoon, so that is also one area that where we face issue. Then there are logistics and transportation issues also, where the raw material transportation and the transportation of finished products also takes a lot of time, and that leads to increased cost. Then there are geopolitical factors, where because this is one of the sector where we have seen a very fierce global competition, where the countries which have higher leverage in earlier also, for example China, they do not want any new player to come. Then there are trade restrictions also. For example, in the several countries have seen that the imports of the raw material have seen restrictions. The various countries are not very happy in sending the raw materials to other countries like India, which have a sunrise sector in form of semiconductor industry. Then there are regulatory environment concerns also. For example, there are complex regulation as well as policy inconsistencies. For example, if we take the case of India itself, we have seen a lot of changes with regard to the regulation in the semiconductor industry. We have seen some knee-jerk reactions also. So that is where this inconsistency in the policy lead to the lack of proper investment in this sector, because the foreign investors are very adamant in going for the investment because of the inconsistencies in the policies, and that is one area that we have to look for. If we talk about various government initiatives, India's semiconductor mission, which is powering the India's future growth, then there is design linked incentive for domestic semiconductor design companies. Financial support is also being given for the semiconductor manufacturing facilities. 100% FDI is allowed under the automatic route for the electronic sectors. Then if we talk about this India semiconductor mission, the almost 70,000 crore was approved by the government earlier. Indian semiconductor mission to act as the nodal agency to develop this semiconductor industry, and this will also drive the long strategy for semiconductors in India. If we talk about this design linked incentive, government is providing fiscal support where reimbursement up to 50% of eligible expenditure subject to a ceiling of 15 crore. Almost a 5-year tenure is there starting from 1st January 2022. Then there is also deployment linked incentive, which is almost 6 to 4% of the net sales turnover over 5 years, and beneficiaries over 100 domestic semiconductor design companies are the beneficiaries of this design linked incentive scheme. Then there is a Chips to Startup program, which aims to more than 85,000 specialized manpower in area of this semiconductor as well as chip manufacturing. Government is providing proper financial support in this regard to address the issues of the skill shortages. If we look into the way forward or the future course of action, government need to provide financial incentives so that the deficiency of the capital can be addressed. Then there is also need for robust infrastructure development. Whatever the enabling infrastructure is required, whether it is the power requirement, whether it is the water requirement, that should be provided without any delay. Government have to also go for skilling the manpower. Okay, especially for example, the program like Chips to Startup program needs to be made much more comprehensive so that the skill gap can be addressed. Then we also need to move towards much better supply chain resilience where we can participate in the global supply chains. Then there is also need for transfer of technology. Here government have to go for leveraging some diplomatic channels where some of the countries which already have better position in the semiconductor industry of chip manufacturing can help in better transfer of technologies. We also need to focus on some niche area, for example the specialty chips. Okay, the newer technologies, the newer requirement of chips, India have to leverage those kind of demands so that India's export potential can be increased many folds in the semiconductor industry. If you talk about a mains practice question from this topic that you people can write, that analyze the role of semiconductor industries in India's socio-economic development. Our next topic is narco-terrorism in India. The context of this topic is that Jammu Kashmir administration have sacked 6 government employees including 5 policemen without inquiry on charges of narco-terrorism. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3 internal security. So narco-terrorism basically implies the nexus between the drug syndicates and the terrorists that facilitates and fund terrorist activities and influence the government policies. The Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab have seen a steep rise in drug trafficking in the recent years. You would often have seen the news, especially with regard to the various drones, the dropping of various drones on the international border between India and Pakistan as well as the line of control. Then if we talk about the illegal drugs including heroin and marijuana are grown and produced in neighboring countries and they are smuggled into India, and that have led to increased cases of drug trafficking in India. The drug money is used to fund separatist and the militant groups contributing to ongoing terror and violent activities, especially in the Jammu and Kashmir region as well as some areas of the Punjab. So, what are the various causative factors of this increasing cases of narco-terrorism? The first is the geographical factors. Our location is sandwiched between Golden Crescent and the Golden Triangle. Golden Crescent is an area of Afghanistan, Iran and Pakistan which supplies almost 90% of world's illicit opium. So this availability of narcotic substance leads to supply as well as the smuggling into the Indian territory, especially by some non-state as well as state actors is located in Pakistan region. Then if we talk about the Golden Triangle, which is located from Myanmar, Laos and Thailand, these northeast hilly terrain makes it easier for traffickers to smuggle drugs. And due to the strategic location, due to the position of India between these two areas, it leads to high inflow of drugs in India. Then the cross-border connections, especially the people located in these bordering areas have a connections, and some of the socio-economic factors, that is low income of the people, poverty in these bordering states also motivates these peoples to go for these drug smuggling. Various other socio-economic factors, for example, low educational facilities, lack of employment, lure youth towards these drug trafficking as well as use of these drugs. Then the poor law enforcement, especially the corruptions that are involved, and the enforcement of the laws that are already in place like NDPS acts also creates a more pathetic situation if we talk about the use of narcotic substances. Then the high profits and the demands, because these are available at a low cost due to our proximity with some of the highest producer of these narcotic substances. The cost is very low, whereas the profit margin are very high. That is also one reason that the smugglers get motivated to go for these drug smuggling. Then the transnational nature of the trade, because these trade are not only limited inside India, inside the borders of India, rather it is transnational. Multiple countries are involved. So that becomes very difficult to enforce the laws that are in place. Then what are the various implications? The security implication. This threats towards the sovereignty integrity of India. This imposes a security challenges for India. We have seen in the past few months that there has been a high rise in the terrorist attacks, especially in some of the peaceful areas like Jammu region also. And that is where this money that is mainly involved in this narcotics or trade of drug smuggling, etc., is also being used to fund these terrorist activities in India. So these drug trafficking as well as its relation with the terrorism creates a security implication, create a security threat for India. Then various economic implication, because it creates a drain on resources. To address these drug smuggling as well as terrorism, India have to deploy security forces, and that leads to a drain of financial resources. Then this also leads to investment deterrence, because of the situation that is created in the valley or in the Punjab region. Investors are adamant in investing in these areas because of these terrorist activities or drug smuggling cases. If we talk about various social implication, it creates a health crisis, especially in some of these bordering states. For example, if this is a Indian Express investigation which says that one addict walks into Srinagar OPD every 12 minutes which have some issues related to the drug, and the Express says that drug menace is a bigger threat than the militancy. Over 75% jump into the OPD patients from the previous year, which means close to 5% walk into DDC Srinagar every hour and 114 every day. 90% of these drug users are in the age group of 70 to 30. So the reason that we have talked, that lack of employment opportunity, lack of better education facilities and proper supply as well as cheaper supply of these drugs create this menace of drugs in the valley as well as bordering states. It also creates a crime wave, because when people find it difficult to afford, they do not have money, they go for theft robbery, or even some cases people join the militancy also. Then it also creates a youth vulnerability because of the peer group motivation that some people have gone for the militancy, especially towards the drug smuggling, etc. The more people, more youth population can be lured into these drug smuggling as well as the militancy activities. Then it can also lead to regional instability because Jammu Kashmir is an important and integral part of India. And if there is an instability in these bordering states, this can lead to an overall instability as well as policy related issues for whole India. If we talk about various government initiatives that has been taken to address these issues, the Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act 1985, which came long back. Here, it mainly provides all the institutional mechanism to address the issues of drug smuggling, use of drug smuggling. Here, the minimum punishment is of 10 years. Then, the Narcotics Control Bureau, which is under the Ministry of Home Affairs, is the nodal agency to look after all the issues of drug menace. India is also signatory of UN and SARC conventions on narcotics, drugs and psychotropic substances, so which also helps India to address the transnational nature of the crime. There are some operations also that has been specifically launched in the drugs. For example, Operation Sadbhavna, which has helped in reducing the menace of drug. Then Nasha Mukt J&K Abhiyan, which have helped people to take pledge to do not use the drugs, and they have taken a pledge to say goodbye to the drugs and to say no to the drugs. If we talk about the way forward or what should be done to address this issue of narco-terrorism, the first is there is need for better law enforcement as well as improved intelligence gathering as well as sharing. We have to strengthen the border security. Here we will have to leverage the use of technologies. For example, some of the measures like bold QRT needs to be implemented throughout the borders. Then we also need to have enhanced law enforcement cooperation between different agencies, whether it is the BSF, CRPF, whether it is the Narcotics Control Bureau. There should be a proper intelligence sharing as well as the cooperation between these agencies. And until and unless we will have this inter-agency cooperation, it will be very difficult for us to address this menace. Then there is also need to have targeted intelligence gathering, especially if we talk about a particular incidents. We will have to get through the actual causes as well as all the related information about that incident, because that will help us in preventing any further attacks or any further drug smuggling in future. Then there is also need for asset forfeiture, where the people who are involved in the drug trafficking or in the menace of terrorism, when we will have this asset forfeiture, that will create a deterrent impact on the people who are already involved or who are thinking of getting involved in these activities. There is also need for economic development. For this, we will have to provide alternative livelihood programs. People who are basically motivating or being attracted towards these drug smuggling or militancy, if we will provide them better livelihood opportunities, better employment opportunities, we can address this issue to a larger extent. We will also have to address the issue of corruptions, the collusion between the different government officials, drug smugglers, politicians, etc. That also needs to be well dealt. There is also need for financial regulations, especially the various banks, etc. that have been involved in these activities. That also needs to be addressed, and the government of Jammu Kashmir in past few months have done that also. If we talk about a three-pronged approach that is needed in the Jammu Kashmir region to address the issue of militancy or the issue of overall instability in the valley, the ultimate important factor that will lead to peace and stability is this strategy. That is, we will have to go for winning hearts and minds of the people. We will have to go for people-friendly military operations, where by military operations, daily life of persons or the native people, the local people do not get affected. We will have to ensure that the local population is not getting affected. We will have to take better civic actions as well as developmental work, because this will create a better quality of life to the people of the valley, as well as it will also help in creation of more jobs, better employment as as well as educational opportunities, and that will lead to overall economic development. We will also have to manage the public information as well as the perception management. Let's suppose if our neighbor is going for a fake news or just creating a negative perception about India, that Indian people is not they do not like the valley people, or the Indian government is particularly against to one particular religion. Government have to address this perception through the government agencies. This perception management will have to be done. All the fake news that is coming, we will have to address that. We will have to build perception, the positive perceptions of the government of India as well as the people of India in the hearts and minds of the valley population. And if all these three are done properly, that will help in creating a positive impact of Indian government as well as Indian population in the minds of the valley people, as well as it will also address their apprehensions, and it will ultimately lead to a peace and stability in the valley region. What other measures that we can do? The diplomacy and the internal cooperation, especially to address this narco-terrorism, where we can have this global counter narcotics strategies, and for this we need to have global cooperation as well as collaborations. We will also need to build diplomatic pressures, especially on some of the higher producing countries of these narcotic substances. We will also have to go for the international cooperation as discussed. We will also have to go for community management as well as the prevention strategies. For example, we will have to look for drug demand reduction by creating more employment opportunities as well as giving a proper rehabilitation to the people. We will also have to empower the community. We will have to increase the awareness with regard to the menace of the drug, the negative impact of the drugs on the life of the people. We will also have to provide proper treatment and rehabilitation of the people, and government is working on this front. We will also need to go for the technological integration. For example, lot of this drug smuggling or the arms that are coming from the neighbors is coming by use of drone technology. For this, India have to develop a robust anti-drone technology so that these drones coming from the opposite side of the border can be addressed. A mains practice question from this topic that you people can write: discuss the factor contributing to the emergence of narco-terrorism in India. What are its implications for regional security and stability? Our next topic is subclinical tuberculosis. The context of this topic is that first of its kind TB prevalence cross-sectional survey was carried out among individuals aged older than 15 years across Tamil Nadu from February 21 to July 2022. Now the survey reports have came into the public domain. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, health, government policies and interventions. So the important finding from the survey is that the 39% or almost 94 people of the TB cases detected had no TB symptoms, and this is what is the subclinical tuberculosis. Normally, the people who have tuberculosis, they have symptoms like cough, the fever, these people lose weight, etc. But people who are having this subclinical tuberculosis do not have any symptoms. And this survey says that among the 244 TB cases detected, molecular test correctly detected 91.8% cases, whereas smear microscopy detected only 50.4 cases. And as we have discussed that 94 people of the TB cases have no symptoms and would have been missed if the chest X-ray was not used. And all the 94 people with TB who were picked based on the chest X-ray abnormalities were bacteriologically positive, means they were TB positives. So what the survey emphasized, that instead of only going for the microscopical test or the this molecular tests, we should also prioritize this X-ray testing, because this will yield a better result and we can also get a better data with regard to the subclinical tuberculosis. Because there has been cases where these people who are TB positive with subclinical tuberculosis with no symptom at all couldn't be detected through the earlier testing methods like this molecular test or this smear microscopic test, but they were detected by this X-ray testings. The National TB Prevalence Survey 2019 to 21 says that 42.6 of the TB cases which were bacteriological positive but did not exhibit any TB symptoms, and that also emphasizes on the point that we need to have better X-ray testing to look after the TB cases, to go for the zero TB cases, or to achieve our goal of zero TB cases. As you will be knowing that this tuberculosis is an airborne bacterial disease which is caused by the bacteria Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and it mainly affects the lungs, but it can also affect the other part of the bodies. If we talk about the signs and the symptoms, the weight loss, reduced appetite, night sweats, fatigue, coughing of blood, coughing for more than 14 days, and persistent fever are there. But if people are having this subclinical tuberculosis, they will not have these symptoms. Means the people cannot detect TB without testing because they do not have symptoms. But what happens by, let's suppose, singing or talking, they can cause the transfer of these TB from one person to other person. So human to human transmission even in the subclinical tuberculosis is possible. If we talk about the TB cases in India over the year, as per the India TB report 20, it was almost 26.9 lakh. But if we compare to 24 report, there has been a slight increase in the TB cases. Almost 27.8 lakh cases were there. If we talk about the estimated mortality or the death, it was almost 3.2 lakh. If we talk about various government initiatives that government have taken to address the issue of tuberculosis, Pradhanmantri TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan, where the government is providing nutritional support, increasing access of diagnostic and treatment. Then there is a national strategic plan for tuberculosis elimination, and starting from 2017 to 25. Here the target of India is to eliminate tuberculosis by 2025, 5 years before the global target of the WHO. Free of cost diagnostic and treatment is being provided. 1200 crore have been allocated, and almost 500 per patient have been provided for the nutritional support to all the TB affected patients. Then there is a tbharegadeshjeetega campaign and the Nikshay Poshan Yojana, where the benefits like financial incentives and incentive for complete duration of anti-TB treatment to the patients are being provided. The incentive that are being distributed in the cash via direct benefit transfers. Some of the antibiotics that are mainly used to treat the tuberculosis are rifampicin, isoniazid, and pyrazinamide. Our next topic is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Context of this topic is that 4 years after then US President Donald Trump signed the Gandhi King Scholarly Exchange Initiative Act, US and Indian officials are trying to overcome the hurdles posed by the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions and non-governmental organization or NGOs. So this FCRA was enacted in 1976 during the emergency period due to the concerns about the foreign interference in India's affairs through financial support to independent organizations. And this has been mainly designed to regulate the foreign donations to individual as well as to the associations, and that is to ensure that they operate in a manner that is consistent with the values of the sovereign democratic republic. Means whatever the donations that are coming in India that do not lead to the security implications in India, that do not affect the sovereignty and integrity of India. Whatever the donation are coming is actually going, it is being actually utilized for the betterment of people. The aim is to prevent the foreign organization from influencing the electoral politics, social, political, economic or religious discussions in India for wrong purposes and activities that are detrimental to public interest. And this FCRA is under the purview of Ministry of Home Affairs or MHA. There has been 2 amendments. One was in 2010 where it enacted to consolidate the law to regulate the acceptance and utilization of foreign contribution by certain individuals or associations, and to prohibit acceptance and utilization of foreign contributions for any activities which has been detrimental to national interest. It was again amendment in 2020 where it have prohibited the transfer of foreign contribution to any other person or organization. The person or organization who is receiving these donations will have to use. They can't transfer to any other person or organization. It have also reduced the limit of use of foreign contribution for administrative expenses from 50% to 20%. Only 20% of the fund that they are getting can be used for administrative expenses. If we talk about the registration under the FCRA, it is mandatory for all such NGOs to register themselves under the FCRA. The applicant should not be fictitious or benami and should not have been prosecuted or convicted for indulging in activities aimed at conversion through inducement or force, either directly or indirectly, from one religion to another. The registration is initially valid for 5 years and it can be renewed subsequently if they comply with all norms. If the registration can be cancelled if an inquiry finds a false statement in the application by that particular association or the person. Once the registration is cancelled, it is not eligible for re-registration for 3 years. The ministry also has the power to suspend an NGO's registration for 180 days pending inquiry and can freeze its funds. All orders of the government can be challenged in the High Court in that particular state. Now let's move to prelims snippets. The first topic is Yamini Krishnamurthy, who was a Bharatanatyam veteran, and she died recently at the age of 83 due to the age-related complications. She received the Padma Shri in 1968, Padma Bhushan in 2001 and Padma Vibhushan in 2016. She was also conferred the Sangeet Natak Academy Award in 1977. Since we are talking about the Bharatanatyam, let's look into some basic details about Bharatanatyam also. It is a over 2000-year-old dance form. The Abhinay Darpan by Nandi Keshwar is one of the main source of textual material for the Bharatanatyam dance in India. It is also known as Ekahar, in which one dancer performs many roles. If we talk about various compositions that Bharatanatyam have, we have Alaripu, Jatishwaram, Sabdam, Varnam, Tilan and Mangalam. The Varnam, which is the most important composition of Bharatanatyam. The performance ends with the Mangalam by seeking the blessing of the gods. The accompanying orchestra consists of vocalist, a mridangam player, violinist, veena player, a flautist and a cymbal player. The person who conducts the dance recitation is the Natu Vanar. Second topic is Village Defense Guards. The Village Defense Committee was set up in mid-90s as a force multipliers against the militant attacks that were being seen in the valley. The aim of this was to provide residents of the remote hilly villages with the weapons and give them arms training to defend themselves in case of any militant attack. And this Village Defense Committee has been renamed now as the Village Defense Guards, and they are responsible for providing intelligence to the security forces and helps in counter-insurgency operations. They functions under the supervision of District Superintendent of Police or the Senior Superintendent of Police, that is SSP. They maintain security in the rural areas of the Jammu Kashmir, and it also instill a sense of self-protection, and they also ensure safety and security of such villages which they are guarding. They are also provided a monthly remuneration. If we talk about next topic, that is Assam Rifles, it came into being in 1835 as a militia called Kachar Levy to primarily protect the British tea estates and their settlements against the tribal raids. Besides maintaining law and order in the northeast, the Assam Rifle also guards the border with the Myanmar in the region. Some of the major roles that it have performed after the independence: it have performed the conventional combat role during the Sino-India War 1962. They have also conducted operations in the foreign land as part of India's peacekeeping force to Sri Lanka in 1987, which was named as Operation Pavan. Then it have also done some peacekeeping role in the northeastern states, which have seen the insurgencies. The administrative control, that is the salary, etc., are mainly seen by the Ministry of Home Affairs, whereas the operational control is with the Indian Army, that where they will be posted, etc., is with the Indian Army or with the Ministry of Defense. So this Assam Rifle is under the dual control of the Government of India. Administrative covered control is under MHA, whereas operational control is under the Ministry of Defense. Our next topic is Najul land. The context of this topic is that recently UP government have passed a bill in the Legislative Assembly, but it couldn't be passed in the Legislative Council. This bill empowers the state to reclaim Najul properties, which can be also called as the government properties, which are leased to private individual and entities for public use and the developmental activities. These lands are actually owned by the government, but is most often not directly administered as the state property. They has been leased to the private individuals. State generally allots such lands to any entity on leased for a fixed period, generally between 15 to 99 years. When the lease term is expiring, the person can approach the revenue department, and they can renew their lease period. If we look into the history of these Najul lands, the kings and royals whose lands were vacated by the Britishers, they often lacked proper documentation to prove their prior ownership on that land. And that is where these lands were marked as Najul lands, and they are to be owned by the respective state governments. This was all from my side for today's analyst. I hope you liked the session. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.